Hey Andy, how you doing? You're muted. Andy, you chose to mute yourself, so you're muted. How's everybody doing, everybody? Welcome to the Untitled Entertainment Design Show. We're muted, we're unmuted. What is it? It's 2022. We're all just muted, right, Andy?
You'd think I usually keep my finger on the Control D button here too, but I didn't. I was doing my pre-show stretches.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, we are so happy to be here. For those of you that are just joining us for the first time, I'm Patrick Kling, and
I'm Andy Garfield.
this is Andy Garfield. What an amazing week in themed entertainment, Andy. We had the Wish. I mean, it's kind of like a very long, lengthy launch. I don't know when to congratulate people because they're still doing their test cruises and maybe they're on a voyage. I see people on it, but kudos to that team out there. People
have a lot of friends and colleagues. We have a lot of friends and colleagues that worked on that.
And then, hey, Damien, thank you for joining us here today. For those that are here to see Deck, and otherwise known as Dead Skull, we have a lot of people waiting in the wings to see him. We're excited to have him on board.
Yeah, I'm excited too. He's one of these characters that I interact with online quite a bit on Twitter and whatnot, and to get to chat with him, in person is a real treat. Looking forward to learning more about him and his career and what he's doing, how he got where he is, and where he's going.
All right. Well, without further ado, let's bring him on. Hey, how you doing?
There he is.
I'm good. How are you?
The man, the legend.
I wouldn't say that, but you're setting the bar way too high.
Well, welcome to your next installment on TETV. You graced us with your presence on the Unsung Heroes show and made your debut, and now we're back. We wanted to have you on. We're here to overall talk about projection mapping, and I think it's really an interesting medium. I remember my first time seeing anything like it. It was back in the Disneyland 50th anniversary days, where they started to do projection mapping on It's a Small World to try to draw people away from the center of the park. However, before we dive all the way into that, just a little tease, love to hear more about your history. You didn't actually start in themed entertainment per se. In fact, there's a little bit of a clue in your minimalist apartment, for lack of a better. Well, you just moved, right? Are you in like a campus housing or something, or what? You have like two things. You have like what is in the background? We have like some things, and then we have a DJ set.
Yeah, it's freshly moved. Well, not freshly moved, but I've been in Canada for like a couple of months now. But especially in this apartment, maybe like 3 or 4 weeks. So it's very minimalism and all that stuff at the minute. So. But yeah, I've got my all the important things like a fridge and some DJ decks. So,
do apartments come with fridges in Montreal or not? Do you have to buy your own?
This one came with one, but I'm not too sure. So I can't say I'm that well experienced on the whole what comes in a Montreal apartment these days. But yeah, no, I fell into themed entertainment like as most people do by chance. So before all of this, I was in the music industry for around 9 or 10 years, working as like a videographer, and then I would sneak into like nightclubs with a camera. Then I got caught, and then I'd start filming the DJs, and the more I filmed the DJs, I would learn to DJ. And then I came across 3D projection mapping when it was being used in like the music industry, like for live shows. So I wanted to do that, started making my own 3D projection mapping shows, and that kind of developed over the few years. And then when I kind of left the music industry, I thought of the funnest job I could think of, and that's designing theme park rides, attractions and shows and that type of thing. And the skill set was like easily transferred from 2D, 3D animation, 3D projection mapping and all that stuff into what are now attractions today. So totally different industry, but very similar skill sets when you put them on paper.
That sounds really cool. So where are you from?
So I'm from the UK, from a small town called Nuneaton, which is just outside of Birmingham and Leicester. And that's pretty much where I started everything just there, really, yeah.
So what were your home parks?
Yeah, I was just going to say.
So my closest home park would be Drayton Manor, which is now a lot more family-friendly kind of park. It was that kind of every field trip, every kind of year with school would be Drayton Manor, and then I'm kind of in between Alton Towers and Thorpe Park, so they're kind of equal distance away for the more well-known parks in the UK.
What was your first like theme park then? Those are sort of local regional amusement parks.
Yeah. I was lucky enough to go to Universal Studios and Walt Disney World as like very young. So I think my first experience with a proper themed park would be your Magic Kingdom, Epcot, Hollywood Studios, or MGM back then. So those types of parks.
How did it feel going from, you know, your regional sort of amusement trolley parks and stuff like that to, you know, a proper giant, you know, corporate theme park? Was it a big switch?
Yeah, it's like that's when the kind of love for themed entertainment really developed, because there was actual theme. And some of the attractions in the UK do have like an overlaying theme, and there is a bit of themed design and that type of thing within the cubes. But when you kind of see it and there's a story and there's a lot more to digest, you don't feel like you're waiting for a ride anymore. You feel like you're actually in a themed story.
That's awesome. So, you know, so now you do projection mapping. What was, you know, how do you go from being, you know, a DJ and, you know, video producer to, you know, doing projection mapping for themed experiences? Like, you know, what's the journey? Walk us through that.
Yeah, so the journey is very much a trial by error kind of story. So like I mentioned, I would film and DJ and all that type of stuff, and then I came across a 3D projection mapping show in London. So I was filming at Brixton Academy in London for Skrillex and his Cell tour. So that was this kind of my first introduction to 3D projection mapping. It was this big white structure on stage, and only up until then 3D projection mapping was kind of seen on buildings, and this is when it started becoming more viral online as well, but no one really understood it too much. It wasn't used in commercials, it wasn't like in many theme parks, it wasn't that like kind of globally known as what it is today. So when I seen it in the gig, I was just like, I have no idea what this is, but I really want to learn how to do it. So there wasn't, like I say, there wasn't many that kind of resources online. So with my university, I was studying at University of Lincoln in the UK. My BA, which was media production, I kind of asked in a sense, and also just demanded that I learn 3D projection mapping, but no one really knew exactly what it was or how it was. So I just jumped into the deep end and started accumulating cardboard boxes from my friend's day job. He worked at like a grocery store, and I would ask him for all these cardboard boxes to have surfaces to kind of project on. And then at the university, I rented like, I think it was like a VGA Epson projector, only like 600 lumens. Like your phone's probably brighter than what that projector was back in the day.
Pico projectors that you can put on your phone.
Oh yeah, definitely. So I started kind of taking over the university kitchen and like piling all these cardboard boxes and pointing projectors at them, and not really knowing what projection mapping was, just learning kind of how to project my work onto these surfaces and that type of thing. So it was very much just a trial by error. And then the more I kind of got comfortable with just projecting my secondary screen basically on my laptop, there was no kind of projection mapping tools that I knew of that kind of did what it does today. So I was kind of lining up After Effects and then drawing onto the cardboard boxes with templates and that type of thing. But because it wasn't projection mapping, no one could touch these cardboard boxes. So I would like be adamant, like, if you go near my cardboard boxes, I'm gonna break your legs, because it's I can't afford to like reposition them really like specifically in the right places and all that type of thing. So I did my first test at university, and then it kind of evolved. Then when we were on kind of summer break, I did a show in my parents' living room, which was this kind of weird cardboard box DJ booth kind of thing. It's just white cardboard boxes that were kind of spray painted. And then that kind of evolved the live show in the sense of what it is today. It was this kind of DJ booth-esque setup. And once again, I just, for 3 or 4 weeks, just told my parents to kind of walk around these cardboard boxes and not touch them. So there's got to be pictures online somewhere of like my parents trying to watch TV, and I'm like blasting a projector through the living room to try and do these effects. The
weirdest episode of Gogglebox ever.
Oh yeah, it's so distracting. So that kind of was my first step into it. I was learning through Cinema 4D at the time, so a 3D software, and also I was getting more and more developed with After Effects. And at the same time, I stumbled upon some software called Mad Mapper, which was the software that was being used out there for buildings and live shows and that type of thing. So I luckily stumbled across all the right tools at the same time when I was ready to kind of put this piece of work on the internet. And that project was called Project X. I'm terrible at naming my shows. They're just called loads of random names. And then that kind of hit the internet. And there's some of the cardboard boxes. So those are the ones from my university days. So yeah, as you can see, they're not in the most convenient of places with 6 people living there. It's trying to get to the oven is like impossible.
Some very, very patient friends.
Oh, they weren't patient. We had so many arguments. So very supportive. Oh, no. They're very supportive friends, and like I love them to death. But they were like, "Can we move your boxes now?" I'm like, "No, I'm not done." The live show that I the projection mapping show that I made at my parents' living room, kind of stumbled on to be the viral hit that kind of got me going online. So as these kind of 3D projection mapping on buildings, on like massive facades and that type of thing, I kind of snuck in on the hype with my 6 foot by 5 foot little structure, and it kind of rode the wave in terms of what 3D projection mapping was when it became viral and that type of thing. So I still believe it's like on the first or second search page of Vimeo. Just you've got all these amazing installations from around the world, and then you've got me in Nuneaton making these small little projection shows. But I say there was no kind of like direction, or I just had a lot of support from either family or friends and my lecturers to just kind of try it, basically.
Well, they must be so proud of you now. I mean, your career has skyrocketed recently with your new job and everything. You're doing exactly what you set out to do.
Yeah, it was always that kind of. I was the kid that spent so much time on Roller Coaster Tycoon in the summers, and like building parks and all that stuff. And then, you just never lose that phase. So the projection mapping all started there, and then it just escalated from cardboard boxes a couple of feet high to a bigger test, and then basically graduated to the live show that I have, which I called Invasion Live, which was a 30 foot by 20 foot structure, it's all the same thing. It's just projecting onto services. It's just the same idea, bigger. And then that kind of escalated into world tours and projecting.
What year was that first the installation?
2013, end of 2012, 2013 was my first ever attempt at projection mapping.
Wow.
So it's been a wild ride. Ago. Yeah. So like if I kind of said to myself back then, like even I showed them some of my render work, I'd like, no way. There's no way I could do that in a million years.
Wow. That's awesome, man. Let's see, do we have any Trevor, do we have any more video or pictures of some of that stuff that Duck can walk us through? Yeah, we saw that.
It should be just oh, there. That's me, the youngest. I think I must have been like 17, sneaking around the nightclubs, filming and everything.
Wow.
I know, no hand tattoos. And then this is all my previous life stuff. So before I did all of this, I was I kind of played ice hockey and roller hockey for Great Britain. And that was the kind of life that I thought I was going to have, of playing like professional ice hockey and all that type of thing. But then obviously things change and you want to do something else. So I started filmmaking, which is the top right picture, probably the most embarrassing one that I have in my presentations. I look like I've seen a
pretty
ghost.
young here, man. I can't
Oh,
believe
like yeah. That's in a film festival in Berlin with one of my short films. So I wanted to be a director. I wanted to make short films and that type of stuff. So that was my short stint in the short film kind of circle and going to these kind of short film festivals. And
what kind of short films were you making?
There were like these atmospherical, no kind of storyline, nothing like that. They were just the artsy kind of films. So great cinematography, lighting, editing, and that type of thing. And normally to some kind of musical score. So that's where the editing and the music thing was already starting to line up when I was making music videos or these kind of like atmospherical short films. And then the bottom right picture is from when I entered a DJ competition with Relentless Energy, like the drink. And that was one of those things where I never DJ'd before, and I thought I'll just have a go at it, and got into the top 5. And that kind of snowballed what I already knew about the music industry, but more as a filmmaker instead of an actual performer, essentially.
That's cool.
Yeah, it feels like it's done a lot of things. And yeah, here's some of the fun pictures. So top right is my Invasion live show with me in my little spaceship. It's this big W made out of wood. So it's has a scrim, like a hollow gauze in the middle. So you can kind of see me when we don't project on it, and then when it is projected on, you kind of get the whole kind of projection area. And then on the sides of that is me on the floor trying to fix the show minutes before it is
always the way.
Every show goes that way.
Yeah.
I've never had a show where it's been like, okay, I'm sat in the dressing room going, oh, I've got a few hours before I'm on. I'm always like, it's all wrong. We're going to have to stop there. Everyone's going to have to go home. Yeah, and then some of the bottom pictures are from my performing days of either setting up 3D projection mapping installations in nightclubs to do like off festivals and that type of thing, or just DJing in general with which is the left picture there of these really dingy nightclubs of where I pretty much found my feet in terms of music that I DJ and my whole kind of style.
Yeah, how did you go
ahead.
No, go ahead, Anthony.
No, I think you were going to ask the same question.
Yeah, just kind of interesting. Like, how are you doing this on the fly? You know, in a nightclub environment that's like, you know, it's very interesting. Like, are you actually mapping out the environments in real time? Are you planning ahead of time? Are you going to the same places? You know, how did that kind of work? I mean, it's an interesting scale to be doing that at.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where you kind of would visit. If I didn't have the kind of pleasure of visiting the venue beforehand, I would basically make content or use pre-rendered visuals and then map it while I was there before the club opened. But a lot of my live shows that were for me specifically, we would have to have a stage, and the stage would have to be big enough for all my kind of all my setup and my actual stage and that type of thing. But when it was more for other DJs or anything like that, it would be a very much kind of guerrilla style. You don't know where you don't know what the venue's going to look like before you get there on the day, and just having to kind of render visuals in like the right kind of resolution or setup as you were kind of going. So it was very much a live performance-esque kind of style.
That's cool. So how do you go from projection mapping at nightclubs and DJ sets to, you know, working for one of the biggest media producers for themed entertainment in the world?
So it's a great story. It's a great story. Once again, completely by accident. So I was out performing around the world at these kind of music 3D projection mapping festivals and that type of thing. And
so there's festivals just for 3D projection mapping.
Yeah.
People go just to see big projection mapping shows.
Pretty much.
That's
So
cool.
there's a festival called Circle of Light Festival, which is a kind of competition against countries. So I was lucky enough to be invited and represent the UK. And essentially, you're all given the same template of a facade of a building, whether it's a famous building or just a random building. You're given the 3D files, and then essentially, it's what can you make with that kind of setup. So you have like a 6-minute show, and everyone from around the world kind of competes of how to kind of make those things. So, but yes, well, I was one of these festivals, and I was just hanging out, and I kind of heard some people talking about ice hockey at the bar, and I was traveling on my own, so I was like, oh, I'll go and chat about this. About some hockey. I haven't spoken to anybody. I've been on tour for like however long, and they just so happened to be from Moment Factory, and we kind of was getting to talking and all that type of stuff, and that kind of led me to start visiting Montreal in Canada, and I went to other festivals, specifically Igloo Festival, which is a festival here that's kind of in the worst winter I could describe. It's like a festival outside. It's minus 32 degrees. And if you buy a beer, you've got to drink it quickly because it's going to freeze in your hands.
Jeez.
I know. They don't mess about
There
here.
we go. I think that's closer. Yeah. That's closer to what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is my live show. And essentially, I met Moment Factory then when I came over to Montreal as a guest and kind of went to like the Igloo Festival. I visited the Moment Factory offices, and this was around 2015 time. So I went from not knowing anything to about 3D projection mapping in 2013 to 2015 when I was going around the world doing all these shows. So a massive jump, and to this day I still don't know how I was doing it. I was just winging it every night and just people were coming to these shows. So a few years later I decided to leave the music industry and think of the best job that I could do, which was making theme park attractions, or at least helping or being a part of the process. So I started joining companies in the UK. I had 1 year at one company, and then another year at another company, and then kind of COVID and the pandemic happened. So I was still working relatively new to the themed entertainment kind of industry. And then I got a email from Moment Factory just out of the blue. We were talking on and off for about 3 or 4 years, but nothing kind of about me possibly coming to the factory. And then there was a job offer for like a multimedia director in theme parks. So it was always my backlog of work that I did by myself kind of set up the job that I have today. I never kind of worked my way through like a kind of normal ladder of being in the industry for so long. It was a big jump from one to the other.
That's so exciting. Tell us about the picture that's on screen now. It's the Inside the Machine, live from Russia. What's that?
Yeah, so this was the festival that I was at when I met people from Moment Factory. So after my Project X show, the one that I did in my parents' living room, kind of went viral, then I developed the show to what was Invasion Live and had that at my university and did some kind of small shows in the UK. That also got some traction online, and I was invited across the world to Moscow, Russia, to play at the Circle of Light Festival. And that's kind of when I realized not how big projection mapping was, but also that I actually had some kind of, I don't know, name within projection mapping. I didn't know, because I was just doing it every other day and just thinking nothing of it really. But then when you go to a building in the middle of Russia in front of like hundreds of thousands of people and see your name on the building, I thought, oh, so this is where we're at now. But yeah, that was really fun. And then from I think that was like 2015, and then from there it's been up and up since then, really.
That's awesome. I think that the message here to our audience, especially young people in the audience, is that, you don't need to ask for permission to do this stuff. If you want to do it, you just do it and make it happen. And, if you're something interests you and you find you have, some talent at it, man, just keep going, just keep doing it. And, it's hard work and persistence. And, I'm a firm believer that persistence pays off, especially in this industry, because it is so small, and you never know when you're going to meet just the right people at just the right time, and it's the right time for them, it's the right time for you, and magic can happen for sure. I mean, you're living proof of that.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I believe there's a lot of luck involved. However, you need to be in the positions for that luck to happen.
Yeah, luck is being the right person at the right place at the right time.
Exactly. And some people get that and some people don't. And some people have to work 30 years towards it. Some, like myself, I got it pretty quickly. But it's one of those things that I believe that if like themed entertainment is the industry you want to be in, just start making stuff. Like if it's 3D projection mapping, just get a projector, start pointing at stuff. They're very inexpensive now, or even to like rent them, they're really cheap. Get some cardboard boxes. I'm not saying to go down the exact route that I did, but it's one of those things where create your own opportunities and make your own projects. You don't have to kind of work as an intern and then slowly get to do things. You can start working on your kind of fictitious projects and show that you're capable of doing that type of stuff. And then when the real brief comes along, you're going to be way ahead of it.
Yeah. I mean, you see a lot of people, in America, Christmas is huge, and you see a lot of like big, house displays, with Christmas lights and all that DMX controlled, lights and sound and everything like that. And you see more and more projection mapping on these, especially bigger houses and even commercial buildings and things like that. I mean, somebody's going to do all that.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, some of these light shows that people do like for Halloween or Christmas, like you say,
Halloween, Christmas,
they're absolutely insane. Like they're just complete like DMX control and projection mapping and essentially designing your own visuals. That's what we do in themed entertainment. It's just on a larger scale. It's not just on a house. So like I say, when I was talking about the music industry, these skills that you kind of develop in different industries, they're all transferable. You just have to think of the bigger picture, not just, I've only made 2D animation for a music video. You can make 2D animation for a queue experience, a walkthrough, a safety videos. You board a ride. It's like the extent's huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just have to decide to do it and then just do it and keep doing it, and just never give up.
Yeah, definitely. Like I say, it's you're only stopping yourself if you don't do it. So, and even if I had like some kind of like confidence of like, will I be good enough to do this and that type of thing, and just have to kind of make stuff for you, and then if you enjoy it, you'll see other people that enjoy your work, and then it will just snowball from there.
That's awesome. So like right now, like I know you can't talk about the work you're doing, which is fine, but in a general sense, where do you think projection mapping is headed in the themed experience realm? And like what's like the cutting edge? Like what are we going to see in like 2 years and 5 years?
I think in terms of like projection mapping specifically, it's in that kind of stage where it was always ahead of its time in the sense of you could make 3D structures, kind of have optical illusions and navigate storytelling vastly different compared to like just going on a ride that's kind of just media. But it's mixing that with technology that's coming out now with kind of tracking and moving set pieces, show action equipment, and eventually kind of evolving all these kind of projection mapping techniques along with technology that's coming out now. It's going to stop being the industry standard to bridge these multiple disciplines together, essentially. So say if you're on a ride that has a drop tower section or something like that, like Rise of the Resistance is a perfect example of that kind of mechanic. Like projection mapping around that is involving like squinching, show action equipment, projection mapping, media. It's that kind of accumulation, I think, is what's going to be upcoming in the themed entertainment industry, of not just seeing projection mapping shows on, like, as everyone knows, like Harry Potter Castle, the Magic Kingdom Castle, all these castle shows. I think it's going to be a lot more evident in attractions, be it small FEC walkthrough experiences, because even if you see a projection on a wall, it's still projection mapping, that you have to map the surface. And then you go up to these huge e-ticket, like multi-million dollar rides where it's used so well that you can't tell it's projection mapping. So there's got to be at least like 50 or 60 attractions out there that use projection mapping, and you would never know it uses it because it uses it so well.
Yeah, I've been on Rise of the Resistance, been on maybe 10 or 15 times now, and every time I go on and I see a new projection mapping effect, with the laser blasts and, like, even projecting damage onto show sets and show action equipment and things like that, is really really interesting.
Yeah, those atmospherical projection mapping techniques. It's one of those things where, when you watch it online, you can see they're obvious because the brightness is different and the shutter speed and all that stuff. But I'm the type of person that will go on a ride, enjoy it, and then go on it again, and I'm just like head on a swivel kind of thing, trying to find out where all the tricks are. And then there's some of these rides that you would, unless you kind of know the ins and outs of like projection mapping or the techniques used in themed entertainment, there's no way you would ever, like, same with Rise of the Resistance, kind of blasts or impacts. They just feel part of the environment. They don't feel like an added kind of technique.
Yeah, I understand. I have a friend that's seen the Back to the Future musical right now in London, and I think from what I've heard, there's not very much video coming out of it. Obviously, thankfully, which you should never take video during a theatrical performance. Don't do it. But apparently, there's a lot of very sophisticated projection mapping in that show as well. So I can't wait to see that when it comes to Broadway.
Yeah, it's a highly recommend show. I got to check it out recently.
Did you see projection mapping in that?
I did. It was very subtle. However, like I say, it wasn't the star of the show. It just enhanced the show, which I think, as it should be, unless it's that's the thing. Even with these large castle shows, it's just that the format you're watching the show. It's not that, I've came here to specifically see projection mapping. You're there for the whole thing.
Well, let's talk about theory then. The theory of projection mapping, like, how, where you were doing these, you started out doing the festivals where projection mapping was the show. That was the reason everyone was there. But, like, now you're in this industry where there's, hundreds of disciplines working together. It's, design, it's engineering, it's music, it's, stagecraft and all this kind of stuff. And like I said, projection mapping may just be playing a supporting role. How do you integrate your process into that larger process, and like where do you come in, and where do you end, and how do you end up? Where do you end up there?
It's one of those things where no matter what the project, be it's a small project or a large project, there's never a defining moment of when you kind of come into the project, because that would be the best thing of being there from blue sky to final integration. It's one of those things as kind of being brought into these projects. You'll join it at various times, and then you have to kind of come up with the best game plan to work with different vendors or clients and that type of thing, of finding this kind of 3D projection mapping solution. And then sometimes the ideas that are kind of brought forward don't necessarily make the best 3D projection mapping kind of effect or illusion of physical spaces transforming. However, there's always a good way and a good approach to kind of solving those solutions. So normally throughout like my various projects that I've done over the last like 5 years, it's one of those things where you will work with loads of different vendors, loads of different scenic companies, AV companies, and that type of thing. Normally when they've kind of fleshed out the idea of what the effect is going to be. And then there's always that kind of level of creative control of enhancing the idea, never completely changing it, but kind of morphing it to make the illusion a bit better in terms of 3D projection mapping. So it's one of those constant communications between various different vendors, and always going back to the client of their creative intent. And then you kind of work together to get a good scan of the area. Then you might work with media companies to actually make the media. and then you kind of work with them, sharing your scans or your kind of projection studies. And it's one of those things where it's a massive machine, right? So all these cogs have to talk to each other and have to be up to the same speed, or it doesn't really kind of work out. And then when it comes to, you've got the production process done and that type of thing, and you go to like on-site integration, then that's a kind of like icing on the cake and the finesse of this machine. And I think one thing that people do forget about these theme park rides is that they're not just the one time you've experienced them, they are resetting up to 6 or 7 seconds after each other, multiple times an hour. The park never closes. They have to work all day, every 6 seconds, and be the exact same quality as they are for the guests that's just seen them or the guests behind you. So it's a lot of communication between companies and problem solving being the main thing of it, of how on earth are we going to pull this effect off, or how are we going to get a projector to cover this area because the ride vehicle's got to go like right in the middle of it, or the scenes below us, that type of thing. There's never a set schedule. I think I'm trying to get at. It's always a know all the processes and know all of the solutions to the process, and then define it based on where you come in on a project.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I love themed entertainment so much too, is that no project is the same, and the projects are always changing, and there's so many different phases to it. And yeah, it's just so awesome. So you've gone pretty quickly from content producer to technical manager too, and creative manager. Do you still create the content yourself, or are you just managing this big operation now?
Yeah, so my title is like a multimedia director. It's a sense of knowing all aspects of the media and then directing it, funnily enough.
It's like you said, like knowing what's possible, and then being able to like say, yes, we can do this. And, sort of like, the Buzz Price, yes, if.
Yes, always. Yes, if is the best solution to most things. But yeah, it's having that kind of knowledge in all of the steps, really. It doesn't have to be a lot of knowledge. It can just be the smallest amount of like, especially integrating these kind of real-time engines into things. Like I don't have I kind of have a brief understanding of like Unreal Engine per se, but I'm no expert at it. But it's enough knowledge to get the point across to someone that is a master at it. I'm trying to take the idea and the creative intent and direct the multiple disciplines of media to kind of come up to that speed. But I also have to like across the years, I would sometimes, if it's a smaller project, I would do it myself. I'd make all the media, I'd do the sound design, I would even rewrite parts of the script, up into the complete hands-off approach where you are managing up to 12, 15, even like teams of like 20 people of working in all these different departments and trying to get to the final kind of conclusion. So it's never the same day. It's always the possibly making 3D renders today, possibly directing sound design this day. It's one of those, the multimedia in an aspect of every sense in the word. So it's and themed entertainment has like everything. There's nothing that's not touched by themed attractions, whether it be lighting design, audio design, audio engineering, technical direction. It's everything and everything. So I'd say if it's if that's something that interests you in terms of wanting to do everything and being that kind of perfectionist, is learn a little bit about everything, and then you'll kind of know a lot in the main, like, broader things.
Yeah, I think that's also really good advice. So we have a few more images. Want to bring those up, and you can tell us what those are as well. Yeah. Oh, your logos. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So this was my kind of deeper dive into kind of 3D animation and this kind of style that I developed over the years of realistic 3D. So I love those roadside neons that are like old America, and basically roadside attractions, motels, and everything neon basically. So I always wanted to become a neon bender. Like I wanted to make like glass bending, but I never kind of had the time or kind of money behind it as well. It's a very expensive hobby to do.
I was going to say it's a very expensive hobby.
yeah. Like all of my neon friends out there that actually make neon, it's like my hat goes off to you. Like I always ask for advice of how to make these things. But yeah, so this is how I kind of started learning 3D modeling essentially, and lighting and the kind of texturing and that type of thing.
And
So
you have a good eye for graphic design as well.
oh, thank you. So a lot of this was just fan made, or like my project here. It's
So that's all CG.
Yep, all CG.
Wow.
None of it's real,
Great.
which is a blessing and a curse with these projects, is because I cannot tell you the amount of emails or messages that I get thinking it's real. And then I have to be like, that's a huge compliment, obviously,
Yeah.
but I also have to say, I'm sorry, I can't actually make this in real life. But then now having connections and stuff, you can kind of bring that project management and all that stuff together. So it's one of those things where it always kind of pays off, knowing, like you say, every part of the process. But yeah, this was my neon collection, I called it, of just making neon signs and making neon signs for events that I love, like Halloween Horror Nights, just as a kind of fan of the event, and wanting to create these environments and kind of settings essentially, that where would these neon signs live? Like where can you remember seeing neon signs, be it like a movie theater or like an old arcade? And then slowly developing all these really small details that fans of, like, say, Halloween Horror Nights in this instance will know about. So there's so many little Easter eggs in my work that I never kind of say or really point them out, just so people can go out and find them themselves.
Have you done work for Halloween Horror Nights, or is it all just sort of tribute stuff?
It's all just because I'm a fan of it, really. There's nothing that
That looks like Jack the Clown. You talk about Easter eggs.
Yes, there you go. So still, once again, completely CGI. And I was like, watching one of the shows, Halloween Horror Nights, and this kind of prop appeared. And I was like, well, what if that prop lived in a circus and it was just dropped on the floor? And then this is where these kind of renders come from. But I think...
Did you get to see the Marathon of Mayhem show last year?
Yes.
Awesome. A lot of projection mapping in that on the buildings behind the show.
Yeah, definitely. So it's one of, like, it's just everywhere 3D projection mapping, and sometimes you can point it out and sometimes you can't. But
yeah,
this is another example as well for people wanting to get into themed entertainment, is make stuff that you love going to. This was more of just a case of making something that I'm really passionate about, putting it online. And luckily some of the creators of Halloween Horror Nights or Universal Creative themselves would retweet it, like it, and then you start chatting, you go out for beers and all that stuff. So it's nothing's ever too small. You want to make an idea, go and make it, and then the more passionate you are and the more the better you get at your work, people are going to notice it.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Absolutely true. It's really good advice. Is that all the pictures we have? I think so. Yeah. So like, what's your sort of like projection mapping white whale? Like what's the big goal you have to like the big dream to a project to work on?
I'd say it's got to be something that's overall creative direction of like an attraction. So not just kind of fixing or coming up with a solution for one part of it. It's that kind of overarching creative director, come up with the ideas, do from the actual blue sky all the way to the actual on-site integration into opening day. But in terms of projection mapping, I've always wanted to do a Halloween Horror Nights kind of show that's specifically projection mapping. I know Marathon of Mayhem has a kind of, it's the Lagoon show. That's the main part of it. But I'd love to have some kind of purpose-built facade that kind of tells the story of like Halloween Horror Nights or something along those lines, and have that as like a main attraction or almost like a performance, and really bring like projection mapping into the event. I know they've had previous projection mapping effects on buildings and that type of thing, but nothing a actual kind of show that's got a dedicated time and that type of thing. That would be my dream kind of project to make that happen for sure. Oh, I think I've lost the audio. Or you on
I
mute?
said,
There
I,
you
I
go.
said, I think there's a good chance that the right people are listening and watching right now, or will be in the near future of this show. So
Oh
hopefully
yeah,
that's the case.
a few of the homies know that I want to do it. So, and they've got all the power to do it. So it's
Yeah.
on them.
No, that's awesome. Well, I mean, that's just so cool. I mean, I think that, your story reminded me a lot of my friends, Gavin and Jason Fox. Do you know them from Frame
Yes.
Store?
Yeah, we
So like
are.
they started, in their garage making, their home haunts and stuff like that. But like, the most awesome, elaborate home haunts you could possibly imagine, just short of making a dark ride in their garage, which I wouldn't be surprised if they did at some point. But yeah, they just did it. They were doing it and they did it. And then, now they're head of theme entertainment for Frame Store and, doing big attractions. I've done, a lot of attractions with them, and they're, big time stuff, and they're creative directors, and those skills that they developed, at home, and then also just, understanding how visual effects work and how graphic design works and how staging works and making props and like actually making things with their own hands and whatnot, that those skills are eminently transferable to overall creative direction of attractions and experiences. And I think that, I think you're right on track for doing that kind of stuff. And I can't wait to see what you come up with and what they'll unleash you on.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's one of those things of like I'm just wigging it. I have no idea what I'm doing half the time. So
Well, that's how I do the show. So
there you go. There you
lost
go.
Patrick. So I've just been winging it.
You did, yeah, I can't tell. So you're doing an absolutely amazing job on my end.
Oh, thank you. No, that's awesome. So yeah, I mean, I think the big takeaway from your story today is that, like I said before, just don't ask for permission. Just go and do this stuff and put it out there. And, if it's good and you've got talent and you can, replicate it and you can innovate, self-innovate and, iterate, people will notice. And, this industry is deep and broad, and there's a lot of opportunity for people. And I think that, anything is possible when you just persevere.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, if you wait for the opportunity to arise,
It's never going to come.
It's never going to happen. Like
You have to make your own luck.
Exactly. And like we've been saying throughout this whole kind of show, it's that just start making stuff. It doesn't, like, some of my earliest work was awful, but that some of the best, some of the leading people in the industry were like, that's awesome, keep doing what you're doing. And then that's that encouragement. So I always say, like, if I'm on Twitter and Instagram and that type of stuff, if anybody ever wants me to check out their projection mapping or their ideas, I'm always there for like feedback, because that's how I got to where I am. It's just constant feedback, whether it was good or bad. I always got the kind of push to do and go right in the right direction.
And you need to be self-critical too. You need to always be looking at ways that you can improve your own work. And all right, well, I did this thing. What did I do wrong? What did I learn from this? What can I do better next time? On the next thing, and transferable skills and all that kind of stuff.
I always try and make a habit of like finishing a project and going back to it like 2 or 3 months with like more fresh eyes, or getting someone to have a look at it that has no connection to the stuff that I've previously done, and just throwing it out there. Like I have a good support network of friends that are just in that just do VFX for a living. Like they're at some of the biggest VFX companies, or they're some of the biggest artists that I've ever came across that just do their own thing. And I'm like, no way I'm ready for like VFX kind of quality stuff, but I will pass my work on to them. And then we all grab a beer online, we'll look at each other's work, and we just have that kind of a friendly approach towards stuff. And then some days you rip each other apart and say it's the worst thing you've ever seen, but that's what you need to hear sometimes.
Yeah, I find that I always ask, like, oh, do you want me to be honest? And then you can unleash.
Oh yeah, for sure. You need to have the tough love. If I tell you you've got awesome work every single time and not kind of point out something out, you'll know that I'm just full of it.
Yeah, no one's going to get better from that.
Oh, exactly, because you'll keep doing what you're doing. You're not going to steer away from that.
So before we go, I want to know tell me about Dead Skull. how did you come up with that? And is it like a DJ name, or is it like your online handle, or yes, all of the above?
So it's all of the above. Essentially, where Dead School came from, it was everyone had DJ names. Like all the music labels that I was a part of, everyone had really cool names. So my name came from, I had a Puppet Master mask, the old school movie, but at the time I didn't know that was Puppet Master. I just seen it as this kind of like weird skull-esque kind of mask. And I just was like throwing out names for DJ names. I can't remember half the stuff that I went through, but they're all terrible. And I was like, this looks like a school, right? So what are schools? Because they're not like living things, are they? Like they're just, whatever, they're dead. And then it just stuck. There was no kind of massive thought process. It's just one of those things that kind of stuck. And then the Dead School became a thing, and some people know me more as Dead School than actual Declan, so that's always good to know. But yeah, there was all luck of the draw. Just make up your own name and stick with it.
Yeah, it's a great name. It's very evocative and hard.
That's what I've been told. So I'm like, I'll just roll with it at this point.
No, it's great. I love it. Well, Dec, it's been just so great talking to you and learning more about you and what you've been doing in your journey, and it's just been fascinating. And I'm just, it's just I'm so impressed. With your journey and all you've accomplished. And man, it's just the beginning. You're like, what, 25?
I'm a bit older than 25. I'm 29 next week. So
well, you're still young. I'm 48, and I still feel like some days I'm starting out on stuff, on the struggle bus creatively. Even it happens to the best of us. But man, I can't wait to see what you do next, and I can't wait to see where this takes you, and I can't wait to go on one of your rides someday.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, let's hope that I'm in one of those positions to have the full ride experience.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. We'd love to have you back on again soon, and hear more about this, and especially when you have a project that you can talk about. We'd love to have you walk us through your process in more detail.
Oh yeah, definitely. Thanks again for having me. I mean, always a big fan of the show, and love coming on these types of things. So yeah, always down.
Thanks so much. And you guys don't forget to like and subscribe us on the YouTubes and the Facebooks and the Twitters and the LinkedIns and whatever else we're on, Instagram, and look out for this on the podcast as well, which will be posted whenever CJ gets around to it, probably Wednesday or so, whenever I get around to editing that. But always, thanks to our producer, Trevor, and our other producers, Charlie and CJ. And we'll be back again soon with Patrick and me and who knows who else. Thanks, guys.